I'm sorry. All right. Welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 384th meeting since we started in February 2009. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require a speaker to take a position on an issue or express a point of view. They have to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. We give the speaker an hour to make a presentation, up to an hour. If the speaker goes over an hour, we cut them off. If anybody interrupts the speaker, we mind interrupter or listen to only one fool at a time. It's one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers from the audience, not speeches. Then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everyone in this audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at the podium here to respond to the speaker said for or against. And our speaker gets the last word, gets a comment, and closed meeting. That's how it works. But before we introduce our speaker, are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Anybody has any announcements they want to make?
Philosophers Forum is meeting next week.
You want to come up here and do it?
All right.
I'll just get started.
Dallas Philosophers Forum is meeting next week at the El Phoenix off of Skillman, Adelia, 7:30 p.m. If you want to get there early at 6 o'clock, you can eat dinner and discuss philosophy with people if you want.
What is the topic this next
The topic, I just looked it up. It's about meaningless lives. As a matter of fact, I can just, let me, it is about, Kirsten Eggerstrom is a speaker, and the abstract is on most philosophical approaches to the topic of meaningfulness in life. A meaningful life is assumed to involve achievements of agency. If we adopt this approach, it may follow that meaningless lives are associated with failures of agency. In this paper, I argue against the failed agent paradigm of the meaningless life because in adopting it, we exaggerate the extent to which we have control over the meaningfulness of our lives. Okay.
What day is it?
It's Tuesday. Tuesday.
What time?
The talk starts at 7:30. You can get, I'm there like 5:30 to set things up. So you can get there at 6 o'clock.
Where is this again, El Phoenix?
El Phoenix at Skillman and Adelia.
Is it on, it's not on Forest?
No, it's not for us. It's off Skillman and
Is
Adelia.
that kind of north?
This is a lot.
It's right off WJ.
Okay. North of the grocery store.
Yeah, so it's right across,
And
right
what day is it?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Right across from what,
Any other announcements? Now's the time. All right, our speaker next week is Calvin Bluette. He's going to talk about how the neglect of America's middle class leads to the death of America's representative democracy. It's on your itinerary. I'm not going to read all this. On October 21st, Jim Love will be the speaker. He's going to talk about decline. That's also on the itinerary, which I will not read and put you to sleep. And on October 28th, Deborah Kendrick's going to be here. She's going to talk about the importance of Head Start of Greater Dallas, Inc. Every child deserves a Head Start. So, do you want to say something?
Tell them about the donation.
Oh, well, here, come on up here and tell them. Anyway, Head Start is they're trying to get kids to get in school and they need donations like money and art supplies, etc., whatever. Cotton balls, Q-tips. Anyway, that's what my wife was trying to pass on to you. I'm trying to speak for her. Anyway, it's easy. Okay, our speaker tonight is Jian Li. She's going to talk about on the human body as a machine or a garden. She's an anthropology and Mandarin teacher. She will discuss two worldviews about human body and health. That is, the body as a machine to be fixed in the modern Western medicine versus a body as a garden to be tended to in the traditional Chinese medicine. She argues that those two different views of body and health have direct impact on both public politics and healthcare system in the way individuals take care of their health. So without further ado, please give a very, very warm welcome to Jian Li.
You're calling her like a
Jian, you say that right?
Jian Li, yeah.
Jian, yeah.
Like Jan.
Oh, I know G.I.
Like Jan, Jian.
Jan, all right.
Jim, like drinking.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here today to talk about Chinese traditional medicine and versus the Western medicine. How many of you have used Chinese medicine? Anyone? Yes, most of you have tried. How many of you have used acupuncture? Acupuncture. And how many of you have used herbal medicine? Okay. Wow. Okay. More than half. So today I'm mostly going to talk about acupuncture. First, I'm going to talk about the philosophy behind two healthcare systems, body and health and disease. And then I'm going to talk about the new science behind explaining how Chinese medicine works, especially how acupuncture works. And finally, I'll touch upon the policy implications for using one system versus the other system. So as Tom introduction mentioned, that my topic is using the two metaphors. One is body as a machine, another is body as a garden. When we talk about machine, that implies that the parts are observable and the treatments on the symptoms that's measurable and observable. They are kind of static. They're there and we can observe, we can measure blood pressure, heart rate, many different aspects of health that we are familiar with. With Chinese medicine, many things are not that easily quantifiable. The doctors will look at your tongue and feel your pulse, and the diagnosis, a simple diagnosis may be something like your health. If you are healthy, your yin and yang are balanced. If you are not healthy, then your body is out of balance, and they will find a way to restore the balance in your health, and then you become healthy again. Whereas in the Western medicine, when you are sick, usually we seek to identify a virus or something external, and then try to use antibiotics or something to cure the disease, rather than treating the body as a whole system, in the sense that the Chinese doctor will not only ask your physical symptoms, but also your stress levels, your sleep patterns. And if your stress levels and sleep patterns are out of whack, or relationship is out of whack, these will all impact your health. For example, sometimes, let's say a flu or cold or even allergies, we are exposed to the same level of environment, but not everyone gets the cold, gets the flu, or gets the allergy, right? So the external conditions that we are exposed to could be exactly the same, but our body's response to the external stresses will be different. So there's something more than what's outside that affects our body. It's more how our body's own immune system ability to fight off diseases. So the Chinese medicine looks more at the self-defense system. In the Chinese medicine, traditional medicine, the language is to restore the balance, restore yin and yang. So there are several theories behind this. The first concept in the Chinese medicine is qi, right? And the second is yin and yang, and the third is the 5 elements. Qi is life energy. It's sometimes the easiest. There are many meanings of this qi. The original meaning of qi is like air. By extension is the life energy. The life energy has different sources. One is inherited. When a baby is born, the baby was born with a life energy that will stays with this baby, with this child forever. Some people have a stronger immune system. Some people have weaker, just inherited, right? And then there's also the environmental issues, like how you eat food, your diet, your exercise, your stress level. These will all impact your qi. That's a basic concept of qi. And then there's yin and yang. Every one of us has, according to this theory, has yin and yang. And some people by nature has higher yang energy. Usually men have higher yang energy, and a female have more yin energy. Yang is associated with the sun, with the light, with the activity, and the yin is associated with the earth, with female, with the moon. In this system, there's no superiority or inferiority between yin and yang. They are just different, they are complementary. So you cannot have day without have the night, you cannot have male without female. And not only they are not in conflict, they're complementary, but also the status of yin and yang will change over lifetime. Usually, young men have higher testosterone and a higher yang energy, and a female has a higher estrogen and a higher yin energy. But as they get older, men's yang energy may go down, and the female's yang energy may go up. So you will see a lot of females as they get older, they are more feisty. A lot of females, they want to go travel, they want to do more things, whereas men tend to, like when they go older, they might want to homebound more. Not everyone, but the theory behind it is that we are not fixed body. Our energy levels change. But in general, it's better to be in a balanced state. If we are really out of whack, then you are more likely to have diseases. And a Chinese doctor, by diagnosis and look at your tons of feeling your pulse, they can tell how balanced you are and to what extent it's not balanced. And next concept is the 5 elements, and it's quite complicated. I'll just kind of briefly touch upon 5 elements. In Greek, I think there are also 4 elements. In Chinese, there are 5 elements. Let's guess, what are the 5 elements that we think like?
Earth,
Fire, air and water, Air,
That's four.
and there's one more. There's one more. The one more, I think in the Chinese system, but not in the Western system, is metal. Metal, or gold, or metal. And autumn, fall is related to metal. So the 5 elements that these, in addition to the 4, there's this metal elements. And the Chinese medicine, they associate these 5 elements with 5 major organs in the body. And each element interacts with the other elements. And if your fire is too high, your face will be red, your pulse will be rapid, and you might have some heart problems. So the Chinese doctors, they use these kind of languages to diagnose the balanced state of health. And in terms of caring for health, in addition to go to see the doctor, you also care by yourself about the proper food. And according to the Chinese medicine, the food, every vegetable, every meat, pasta, they have their inherent properties. The inherent properties, let's say, hot, cold, warm, neutral. So if your body is kind of high in fire, you should avoid eating food that has the heat property. It doesn't mean the food is hot in temperature, but rather the food will generate more heat. One of the examples is that Chinese believe in terms of meat, like mutton, sheep, belongs to a warm, hot property. So only in winter people will eat, are more likely to eat sheep, mutton. Whereas chicken is kind of neutral. Coffee is considered more like heat, and tea, green tea is kind of cooling property. So if most Chinese know the kind of properties in those food, so if you feel like your body is kind of like in fire, heat, then you should eat food that with a cooling property. When your body is kind of in a cooling, too cool, then you should eat food has a warm property. I can tell you an example of how this kind of ideas are ingrained in people's mind. When I went back to China to visit about 10 years ago, I went to a pharmacy, and I asked the pharmacist about cold medicine, and so I want to buy some cold medicine, and the pharmacist asked me, do you have a hot cold or cold cold? I wasn't thinking in terms of like hot cold or cold cold. Like in the US, you just buy cold medicine and no one asks you which kind of cold. So if the pharmacist was kind of a very caring, responsible person, they will not sell you cold medicine, even if it's over the counter. If you don't know your cold belongs to cold or hot. Chinese people, because they brought up in that environment, they kind of automatically know that cold has the heat property or has a cooling property. So it's very ingrained in the culture. And in China, hospitals have two departments, Western medicine and Chinese medicine. And people make a choice which department they want to go. Usually Chinese medicine is cheaper, it has less side effect, but it works more slowly. Western medicine is more expensive, it works faster, and has side effects, more side effects. So depending on personalities and depending on the kind of diseases, people choose one way or another. In a recent documentary, BBC, if you Google BBC Chinese traditional Chinese medicine documentary, you'll find a recent documentary by a journalist trying to understand how acupuncture works. And her first line in her documentary, tried to be dramatic, is that she went to Shanghai and went to a big hospital. There was an open heart surgery, and the patient chose acupuncture versus the anesthesia that we use. She chose acupuncture, and the cost was like one-third as expensive if you choose the Western kind of anesthesia procedure. And she was awake all the time during the surgery. So after surgery, she was telling her sister what happened during the surgery. She could hear doctors talking. She could hear cut up heart and to do the surgery. And the next day, she was able to get out of bed. So that's still widely practiced in China. Now, there are not many rigorous scientific experiments to validate this kind of procedure. Some people say if you believe, it works. Some people say it's a placebo effect. To the Chinese, like, they don't have to do like rigorous science. It works, it works. It's very expensive to do this kind of experiments. So recently, last few years, both in Britain and in the United States, there are some rigorous science being performed on the acupuncture. One of the experiments being done in Britain, well, you know, the medical experiments, the most basic is you have to have two groups. You have to have a control group, you have to have the treatment group. So they got like 300 people, they had a control group and they had a treatment group, and they treated headache, migraine. The group that received acupuncture, the result after about a year, they follow up a year, their headaches are less frequent and less severe. But that experiment only, because it has a control group, so it is a scientific experiment. But on the other hand, people still question about the placebo effect, in the sense that you know you're getting acupuncture treatment. So knowing acupuncture treatment might affect how you interpret the result. So it's not 100% rigorous. So the second experiment done tried to eliminate this possibility of placebo effect. How did they do it? They had a real acupuncture needle and a sham acupuncture needle. So the sham acupuncture needle, they had a small tube that will give you impression the needle goes in to your skin, but actually it stops at the surface. You just feel a pinch, but it doesn't really work. The other one that does, and they choose the people to do this control group and treatment group and not telling them who got sham and who got real. And that trial also had positive effects for the group that received a real acupuncture treatments. 33% of people who got acupuncture treatment was remarkably better than the other group. But that experiment didn't answer the question of how the science works. It's a more of a result, but you don't see the procedure. You don't see how does it affect the body. So the third experiment tried to solve that problem of trying to know with acupuncture how it affects the brain. Now, some acupuncturists claim they can treat almost every disease, but as a scientific experiment, you can only focus on something very specific. And we know now the acupuncture, one of the things that acupuncture works well is the pain treatment, relieve the pain. So that experiment was done with a rigorous design and used MIA brain scan and very strong brain scan from York University. And they had 4 scientists. One is neurophysiologist, one is neuroscientist, one is acupuncturist, and one is academic who design experiments. So 4 scientists got together and this journalist who made this documentary, and they wanted to design an experiment to see what happens when a real acupuncture session is the effect on the brain. So with very powerful MRA on the brain, you can see the acupuncture, when the acupuncture needle is in a particular meridian, what happens to the brain. They also did 2 groups to eliminate the problem of placebo effect. So one group, the acupuncture needle doesn't go deep as it's supposed to be, and the other group, it goes deep enough to affect what acupuncturist expects to achieve. And the acupuncturist has a special jargon. In Chinese, it's called De Qi. De means getting, Qi is the energy. So if you do you go get an acupuncture treatment, if the acupuncturist wanted to really have a conversation with you, they might ask you, how do you feel? But with Chinese, they will say, do you feel the qi moving? And most Chinese, they kind of know what does it mean and say, oh, I have qi, I have de qi, de qi. De qi means I feel the qi is moving. So going back to the brain scan, when they had the group that without the real acupuncture but very surface, they saw parts of the brain light up like red, because whenever there's an activity in your brain, you get excited. So some parts of your brain will light up. But with the real acupuncture, when it's kind of deep, and when a person said that person feels qi, they were very surprised to find that in the limbic system, deep in the back of the brain activity is deactivated. Instead of activated, it's deactivated. And they color the deactivation blue. So every time when a patient feels the qi is moving, the brain had according to those scientists working there, they said that they found neurons were deactivated instead of being activated. And that was the first time that they knew something happens when a real acupuncturist work in the body, and they didn't, because the scientists are usually very cautious in interpreting the results. They didn't go into details, they just kind of describe it's being deactivated. But they kind of implied that the deactivation of the brain, maybe that's the pain center, so the pain goes down. When your brain is very sensitive to pain, you feel a lot of pain. But when acupuncture works, it actually makes that pain center deactivated and you don't feel pain. Not only that particular moment, it can last for many days, many months, or years. And some people have like a couple of sessions and they just like feel like the pain just went away. So these 3 experiments are documented in the BBC documentary on Chinese acupuncture. Was very powerful in explaining how acupuncture works. Now, I'm going to the last part is the implications. The implications is that usually acupuncture is more cost effective. It costs much less. Not only say like in surgery, if you receive acupuncture instead of anesthesia, it costs 1/3 less, 2/3 less, and also recovers faster. But if our healthcare system usually doesn't pay for treatment, so-called alternative medicine here, if the insurance company doesn't pay, then people are more hesitant to go. Not only more hesitant, and a lot of Chinese doctors say when they get referral of patients, the patients are really like in a really bad situation. If they could have gone to see them earlier, it will be easier to treat. But they have like taken a lot of medicine, a lot of things like toxic in the body, and then last result, they would go to the Chinese doctor and make the job so much harder. And people would also hesitate to go if you have to pay out of your pocket. In the last 2 years, I went to see 2 Chinese doctors. One time because I was coughing, like I had no fever, no like other symptoms other than like coughing for 3 months, 4 months. So I went to see a Chinese doctor and had 2 weeks of herbal medicine, and then my cough went away. And that's kind of if I had fever, pneumonia, I will go to a Western doctor because I know for sure what the problem was and antibiotics will cure it. But if I had coughing, but I don't have fever, it's kind of like generic. You don't really know. Probably my yin and yang is out of balance or qi is out of balance. So I would go to a Chinese doctor. And I'm usually very healthy. The only problem I have is sometimes I can't sleep well. I was taking like sleep aid for many nights, and then I thought I should walk the walk, talk the talk. If I think Chinese medicine will work, I would pay out of pocket and see a Chinese doctor for acupuncture for sleep disorder. Western medicine doesn't really have a good treatment for insomnia, right? It's very difficult because it's kind of unspecific status, just sleep aid, but not treating the root problem of sleep disorder. When I went to see the Chinese acupuncturist, after first treatment, like I could sleep better immediately for a week or two. But after that, sometimes it would just come back. It's not like all the time. Sometimes I know for sure if I would get one treatment, at least like 2 or 3 nights, I will sleep better. But if I not going back, I still have sleep problems. What I'm saying is that each medicine system has its advantages and disadvantages, and knowing what one system works well, another system may works well in another area, that give you more option and power to heal. Recently, the Congress just passed a health care bill that allows the Medicare receivers to have the option to see an acupuncturist, and Medicare will pay for it. And that bill was passed in September. So that's a progress, a step forward, and hopefully that more and more people will learn about different systems, and the healthcare system will be more responsive to the healing power of other systems to help us to live a healthier life and with fewer side effects and with less medical cost. Okay, that's it. I can answer your questions.
What first? Ladies.
Hi, my sister had cancer when she was quite young.
It's not
And
coming
her-
all the time.
Okay. I could just talk.
Oh, needed.
Okay.
Here, talking.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, my sister had cancer when she was a young woman, and her doctor sent her, I was in Chicago, we have a large Chinatown, and to a Chinese doctor, and he treated her for the effects of the chemo, and it was, excellent, she got excellent care. So I went to see him, and the first thing he had me do was stick out my tongue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was to see my yin and yang, is that it?
Yeah, the tongue is like a map of health that they can tell that your internal organs and which part is out of balance.
I see, okay.
I have a question. In fact, I just went to the acupuncturist yesterday. I'm a strong believer. Okay. Now, are you, inflammation, and you often associate that with arthritis. Would that mean that the system is hot if you say that somebody has inflammation? And what would be the counterbalance for that? Obviously, green tea might.
The inflammation itself, I would associate as being hot, that you might need to have food that with cooling property to cool it down. But acupuncture, according to what I've read, works in two different ways. One way is more documented. The other way is less documented and unsure. The more documented aspect is that it reduces pain. It just probably deactivates your pain sensitivity. But how well it really treats the disease itself, that is less documented, less certain. But people are happy that they don't feel that much pain. Even my Chinese doctor said she can be sure she can reduce your pain level, but she is not sure that she would make your disease go away, depending on what kind and how long you have had it. If you have had it for 20, 30 years, it's hard to treat. If you only had it for a month or two, it will be easier to treat.
Oh, I've been to several acupuncturists in Dallas, and they're a lot of them very different. But I had tachycardia, which is rapid heartbeat, and right away they can actually slow the heart rate down, which is just great. Pressure on the left arm becomes very sensitive. But do you yourself get regular treatments from an acupuncturist?
I just give you two examples. I'm very healthy, so I don't really need to go. But when I had a cough for many months without fever, I went to see one. My sleep disorder, I would go sometimes.
Tell her about your experience.
You touched base on acupuncture in terms of the meridians and how it affected the brain. Can you tell us a little bit more, everybody a little bit more about the meridians? I know that's a very in-depth statement. Could you elaborate a little more on the meridians?
I know about meridians, but I don't know how much I can elaborate. I can tell you a story about one of my friends. He is an electrical engineer, and he is also into biomedicine. He's from Romania. He's very, very smart. When he was in Romania, he told me Romanian doctors wanted to do acupuncture, but they didn't know the meridians, exact meridians. And he is knowledgeable in both electrical engineer and biomedicine. He invented a pen to help the doctors to find the meridians. They are electrical currents, and he was so smart. He didn't read English. He didn't read Chinese. He lives here in East Plano, but he believed that they are meridians, and meridians, like, they are special knots that have more sensitivity to energy flow. So he built this pen to identify. So when a pen goes to certain points, it probably like beeps or have like currents, then the doctor knows where the meridian is and can use it. And when he was that was like some 30 years ago when he was in Romania, and he said just because his doctor friends asked him to do, and he had smart to do it, he just did it, and he gave them for free, like without like patents or FDA approval.
children.
Yeah, he just like give them and they just use it. So, and now I bought a Meridian, a big map, like map of chart of human body with meridians, and it's in Chinese. And he doesn't read Chinese, but he puts on the wall. And when he had some special illness, he said he would look at the meridian, he would press on the points, and then some points respond more quickly. And he said one day he had some kind of pain, and he, like no other medicine worked, and he looked at that map and he treated himself, and the pain went away. But, so I just can tell you the examples, but I don't really know.
Yes, does hypnotism play a part in Chinese medicine?
Not really, because acupuncture doesn't put you in the hypnotic state. Herbal medicine doesn't, but there's another way of healing that's called qigong. Qigong, qi, the life force, the energy. Gong means work, so it's work of the qi. And the qigong is very popular in China, and now it's kind of popular here. Even some churches have like groups that does qigong, the qi work. And qigong has some kind of meditation, some kind of hypnotic way of making your brain calm down or focused in some ways. That's not related to acupuncture or herbal medicine, but that's the qigong exercise. And qigong can be learned like a tai chi chuan. Can be learned, and then once you learn, you can do it on your own.
Is that a new hairdo from the last time you were here? Because it looks very nice.
Thank you.
You talked about Chinese medicine treating the body like a garden,
Yeah.
and I didn't hear any references to that in your talk.
Yeah, good question. I probably should have. So, coming back to the machine and the garden, if the house is like a garden, if you say you grow tomatoes, when you grow tomatoes, how many different elements are involved in having a healthy tomato? You have to have right soil, you have to have light, you have to have water, light, some nutrients for the soil, right? So it's not just like machine that when it breaks down, you replace the part, but rather you have to care from the roots. You have to pay attention to your diet. You have to pay attention to your sleep. You have to strengthen your immune system. And only when these elements work together, your yin and yang will be balanced. Then you will be in a good health. If we think about like Western medicine, usually when you have a headache, they treat your headache. If you have a stomach problem, they treat the stomach. Whereas Chinese medicine, when you have headache, they may put a needle on your hand or foot or leg. They don't really treat one specific symptoms. They treat conditions that make the system occur. So in a sense of garden is that we want to nurture a garden in order for the fruits and vegetables to grow and not just focus on one tomato, right? If you have the condition, then tomato will grow. So if your health is in a balanced state, no disease will happen. So I like to go to Chinese doctor for unspecified disease, in the sense that I trust that a good Chinese doctor would not only treat my sleep disorder, but also bring a total balance into my body, so I will be more healthy than taking a drug afraid that that drug has some side effects, then I have to take another drug to counter that side effects. Yes.
John, could you talk to the aspect of, I know there's hand reflexology and foot reflexology, where the points are related to different things. Is that directly connected, or is that its own study?
I think that this reflexology, some are Chinese, some are Indian. Indian, I don't really know that they use another system, chakras. Chinese use meridians, and whether chakras and meridians, they are probably like these are the energy points. And when they do the reflexology, the people who really know, they know particular points that trigger different aspects of the body. So some parts of the foot will trigger your liver qi. It's not just relaxing the foot, but they believe like your intestine, your heart, your liver, kidney, they all have direct points in the feet and in the hand and in some other parts of the body. So that's another way of saying health is a garden. It's like they are all interrelated. It's treating the conditions rather than treating the symptoms.
You talked about yin and yang,
Yeah.
and saying like it's necessary to have like male and female and sun and moon and stuff like that. One of the things our culture is dealing with is transhumanism, where they are trying to invent babies from manufactured sperm and eggs and things like that, such that there is no mother and father, which kind of negates the concept of yin and yang and stuff like that. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on stuff like that.
But isn't that what's the source, the origin when they try to create? Isn't
Well,
that still you have sperm and egg?
Well, yeah, but they're trying to create these things from stem cells. They're trying to get
Yes,
stem
but
cells.
stem cells has yin and yang. If it's egg, it's yin, and if it's sperm, it's yang. So you still come from human and still has yin and yang. Unless the artificial intelligence that totally from machine, then there is no biological sources. But if you see the transhuman tube, these all have the human origin source. I think the more fascinating question is in the future, I've read that artificial intelligence can be built in such a way that will replace humans, and that will revolutionize everything. But so far, it's not a reality.
How do you feel about that?
Do you feel hot or cold about that?
I actually, I am not looking forward to it, and I don't think machines can replace humans because there's something unique about humans that machine cannot replace. There is intuition, spontaneous randomness in human thoughts. But right now, machines can learn, can adapt and learn. But the kind of adapt and learn, I don't know to what extent it could mimic humans. From what I know now, I don't think it's going to be a reality. And I'm not looking forward to that reality if it ever happens.
Are you familiar with radionics?
No.
Oh, okay. A lot of different people developed it in different ways for about a century, but one of them found that they were looking for energy in the body that was a little out of line with what it's normally supposed to be. And then they found that there's a location in the hand of every part in the body, so they could measure it in the hand. Is that similar to acupuncture?
I was talking with some older Chinese, and the way that they explain Chinese medicine and philosophy is that one way of looking at the Chinese thinking about health and philosophy is to treat human body as a system. Not only human body as a system, but any part of your organ is a subsystem of the whole system, which contains the elements of the whole system. So they explain like your finger, one finger actually contains the health or information of your whole body. So from the finger, from the hand, they can tell your health because your hand has yin and yang, and has some meridians that connect to your heart as well. So it's a subsystem of the whole system, and even the subsystem contains all the information of the whole system. I remember, you probably remember William Blake, a poem about brain, like in the little brain, it contains the whole universe. I forgot the whole line, but that's like in modern jargon is the system theory.
Jan, would you be willing to share your Chinese doctor's name and number?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll email to Tom, and I don't have your email if you want to give me.
Well, we'll talk after.
Yeah. Okay.
For 1 second.
Yeah, sure. She wants to make an announcement.
Can I say something real quick? Our computers aren't working, so I wrote down everyone's information so I can put it in manually at night. If you have a problem with that, you can give me cash, but it's just because our software's not.
We know where you live.
Your man.
John, is there a difference between, for instance, a Chinese doctor per se, an acupuncturist, and a Chinese herbalist? Are they different people practicing different disciplines?
Well, actually, traditional Chinese doctor knows both acupuncture and herbal, and their focus may be a little bit different. In Texas, acupuncturist has to be licensed. Acupuncture, but herbal, like the one that I saw to prescribe herbal for cough, I don't think he has like, don't quote me on it, okay, but it's not, but he sells herbal, like you can sell herbal medicine as a supplement. So you don't really have to have a license. But acupuncturist, you have to have Texas license. But they should be trained in both. In recent years, people are more interested in acupuncture than herbal medicine. And acupuncture has been documented as more effective. Herbal medicine is really difficult to judge because the sources of herbal medicine and the skill of the doctor, they're in a different kind of situations. It's just harder to control. There are two kinds of herbal medicine you can have. One herbal medicine is already made like in a bottle. So the good thing about already made in a bottle is it's usually it's more rigorous. They have been tested and they have been approved, at least in China. So it's kind of like proven effective. But a good Chinese herbal doctor wants to give you more targeted herbal combination. If I give you a bottle, the bottle is not for you, individual, but has been prescribed for thousands of other people. So a good herbal doctor, they want to look at you and just to prescribe a herbal combination just for you, no one else. In fact, in that documentary, it says like when she went to a big Chinese hospital and one department was like brewing herbal medicine and was brewing hundreds of bottles for each individual. So it's not in a bottle, it's a doctor for a particular patient because each individual is unique, each disease is unique. So that's why even here, many Chinese doctors, they have hundreds of thousands of individual herbs and they put them together. But you really have to be like with a really good doctor who knows what he or she is doing. But you can also buy the bottle. Buy the bottle, usually it's cheaper.
Is there a direct equivalent or similar equivalent in the West? We have what we call a multivitamin, and healthy people take the multivitamins to stay healthy. Is there a Chinese herbal brew that is kind of equivalent to a multivitamin that everybody is good to take?
No. My Chinese doctor was very opposed to the idea of taking multivitamins or taking any tonic, Chinese tonic medicine. She says if you don't know your body, if your body is already like heat and you think this tonic will strengthen you, you just put more heat to your body. And a lot of like ginseng, ginseng in general has heat property, but there are different kinds of ginseng. There are red ginseng, there are white ginseng, and each kind of ginseng have different properties. And if you don't know your body, which is strong, which is not strong, and you thought it's a tonic, it can do the reverse. Even multivitamins, if your body doesn't lack certain vitamins and you put so much, your body would not regulate itself because you already give its extra. So in fact, after I was taking like multivitamins, I was taking magnesium, calcium, D3, and she kind of like, she encouraged me not to take anything. But I was not sure, so I'll tell you, I'm going to, I don't know today how much blood test I did would yield this result. You can do blood test not only for your cholesterol and things, you can also test different levels of vitamins and calcium in your body. So if you really want to know, you have to have the Western science that tells you exactly what you lack. If you don't lack, you shouldn't take. You can put stress to your body. If you eat healthy, you have a healthy lifestyle, you trust your body will take care of itself. We don't want to take any supplements of Chinese, especially Chinese herbal medicine, because you don't know what it does to you. It might do good to one person, but it doesn't do good to you, because each body is different.
So that's not gonna stop me taking D3 in the middle of the winter, though.
Yeah, D3 probably we need it.
So what's the general treatment for mental illness in Chinese medicine?
That's a very good question. I never thought about this mental problem. So each mental problem have different roots, right? The most important thing is to diagnose the roots of the problem. So as I said, there's Qi, there's yin and yang, and there's 5 elements. This is more complex. So a simple yin and a yang probably wouldn't cut it. They have to probably go through the 5 elements and see how the interactions of those 5 elements are out of whack. And depending on how severe, if it's really severe, probably, Chinese medicine won't work. If it's not that severe, it probably can't work.
Is it generally very prevalent, mental illness in China, or is it not very prevalent?
I'm not really aware. I think mental problems in China and in the US, probably in China in particular, is underdiagnosed. People don't talk about it, don't seek help, and I have limited connections and knowledge of that.
Yeah, I was wondering a similar type question. I think about 2 generations back in the USA, it was tradition that the oldest generation was always taken care of in the home. And if they were declining mentally, it wasn't real obvious because they had respect and care. And so we've had some cultural changes, but besides that, I was wondering about what Chinese perspective would be on Alzheimer's. And they say that's going to increase, and there's profiles on that, but my general question is maybe what would the Oriental Chinese perspective be on Alzheimer's, the medicine point of view?
I'm not aware of any effective treatments of Alzheimer's disease. I've heard cases in China, like here, people, when they have severe Alzheimer's disease, they have to have like a nurse to look after them 24 hours, or they will just wander around and get lost. I haven't heard any effective treatments. Maybe in the future, I would think like Western medicine, gene therapy, might find some solutions in treating at molecular level.
So that begs the question, are there doctors of psychiatry in China?
Now they are, but traditionally there's no specialty psychiatrist, but I think now they do. Traditionally, because in the traditional culture, family relationship is very close, and a lot of psychological problems might arise of family dysfunctional family, and some are genetic. These kind of problems either was not diagnosed or not reported before, it's just not talked about. But now there is more awareness and more treatments. But they do believe that a lot of psychological problem actually has physiological roots. A lot of depression is caused by the blockage of liver qi. And they will treat the liver qi, and when your liver qi flows, your overall outlook will improve. They use their language to describe the symptoms. And I think probably it's true. A lot of psychological problems actually has a physiological roots that we are not aware. But if you treat the flow of qi and flow of energy and blood circulation, then your overall spirit will be improved.
Would you talk briefly on the use of acupuncture in trauma medicine?
Trauma medicine. In fact, I would think Western medicine is better for trauma treatments. The acupuncture relieves pain, but doesn't I cannot say cannot put bone together. I mean, they have done that, but I would rather go to a Western doctor. And in fact, a few years ago, I had a dislocation of my this elbow, and I went to a kind of a Chinese doctor who is also a chiropractor, and the Chinese has a system called the Tuina. It's like they would try to set your bone together. He said, it's going to hurt if I do this. And I said, you try it, then I don't have to go to a hospital, emergency. And he tried it, and it didn't work. And he said, you're too old. If you were like a teenager, your bones and your tendons are flexible, he can put it back. But when you're getting older, your tendons and bones are not that flexible. You can just put it back. So you have to go to emergency and have whole procedure.
You addressed the psychological problems perhaps being caused by physical problems. I was reading a book some couple of years ago by a doctor who does back surgery on people. And he began to see that most of his patients were expressing pain symptoms unrelated to the physical injury they came in for. So he began to realize that the psyche was using the occurrence of the physical injury to vent other psychological pain that it had been covering up. Is there anything like this in Chinese medicine addressing that issue from the other direction?
Other direction. What's the other direction?
Well, instead of looking at it as being caused by psychological problems being caused by physical injury or physical problems, the physical problem being manifested as a result of a psychological problem.
I think that's also a problem of our using language. When I say physical, it's not like what your eyes can see as physical. So the Chinese doctor says is that the liver qi blockage. And liver qi is not observable. It's not observable. But they feel like if they look at your tongue, they feel your pulse, they know which flow of qi is blocked. So it's not exactly physical as we understand it. It's the life energy being blocked. And I kind of believing that, like, if you have pain, whether it's physical or psychological, there's some kind of blockage in you. The blockage can be physical, can be psychological. And if you can make that flow, you can get away that blockage, whether it's emotional or physical, then you will feel much better. It's when we are thinking kind of like going back and forth and not going in a way that you can have a break through your own mode, then you are kind of stuck. Your chi is stuck, your mental energy is stuck. So if you can unstuck that energy, so the Chinese doctor, acupuncture, can unstuck your chi. And once you unstuck your chi, you don't feel physical pain. If you don't feel physical pain, it will help you relieve your psychological pain. A lot of times they are related, right?
Did this single child policy, which apparently put great stress on children, did that have a noticeable effect on the population?
In terms of
Stress and so on.
In terms of stress. Well, actually now the government realizes this puts stress in a family and in general in the development of economy in the future. So now one-child policy is not practiced right. Just a couple of years ago, the policies changed, so people can have 2 kids or 3 kids now. But at that time, the population growth, the government was afraid that the population growth is such that if I use the academic jargon, is the carrying capacity, the resources cannot support. Look at India, look at Africa. The population growth can outstretch the resources to support the population. In fact, now there are 2 kinds of problems. One problem is the one child is being spoiled by 4 parents, by father's side, mother's side, grandparents. So they doted on this little child, and the child being spoiled. The other problem is when they get older, one child cannot support these 4 parents. It's both a blessing and a curse, you know. Now, when the population is controlled, the economy actually can support, give better living condition, but also put stress on family members. So the whole structure, the social structure, has to change. Instead of expecting children to take care of the old people will have to go to like senior home, change environments. It has to change.
Jian, just as you have noted that perhaps Western is better at trauma medicine in some cases, what would you say are some of the best areas where the acupuncture is really effective? What would you want to emphasize?
You mean both or what?
Well, I'll give a for instance, let's say some case of, say, gout in the legs, or a case of, after a stroke, sometimes people have hemiplegia where they've lost feeling on one side or something. Can you speak to that?
Well, as I said, if I know, for example, if I know I have a specific I have a specific cause of my health, then I will go to Western medicine if there's a target medicine for that specific cause of disease. But there are many things that you cannot find a particular cause, even like headache, even like sleep disorder. There are things like have multiple sources that cause this problem. If you don't know a particular reason for this disease, if I don't know, then I usually don't want to take that medicine. I think if I take the medicine, maybe the side effects will outweigh the positive. But if I know a particular, like I know I have a pneumonia, I need antibiotic, I would not hesitate to use antibiotic. But if I don't know really what happened, then I go to see a Chinese doctor. I believe Chinese doctor treats the body as a whole system and can make your condition better to strengthen your immune system, then you can fight off any disease.
In China, is there any talk of marijuana?
Yeah, I think so. They are drug problems, drug dealers, drug problems, they're detox centers.
But is it used for medicine?
Yeah, I think so. There are opium kinds, there for medicine, the doctors would prescribe. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, Jian, what's your take on homeopathic medicine, which is very popular in Germany, where they put a very minute amount of ingredient, like a herb, into a large amount of solution, and that's
Is
very popular.
homeopathic also kind of like, actually it's poison, a little bit poison?
Yeah.
It's like the immune system, to strengthen the immune system.
Yeah, it's sort of like, presumably, it's like a vaccine. Where you,
Vaccine.
But have you any comment on that? Because it's very popular in Germany, I know, very popular.
The Chinese system, the Chinese has one branch of medicine that, when I translate into English, is to use poison to attack poison. So that's kind of like homeopathic, but usually the doctors would prescribe, like you counteract a poison with another kind of poison. That's kind of like homeopathic, but I don't know anything in detail.
I think we're out of questions. I think you have to sit down.
Thank you.
Well, now it's your turn to talk, so come on up here, and if you have anything for or against what the speakers had to say, now's the time to do it. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, these are just comments on medicine in general. I have an uncle who was 99 when he died, but when he was about 95, he lived in a retirement home, and the locum, which is a junior doctor, came round and he said to him, "Well, Mr. Beasley, how do you think you've lived so long?" And he said, "Keeping away from doctors." And actually, over here, every time I go to a doctor, I see the dollar bills revolving in their eyes. And so it really does give me pause, when they say, well, you should take this and do that. I'm afraid coming from a socialist system of national health service, where you don't get that feeling. You just don't get, money is not the
the end product of things. You don't never get it, but over here you do. And so you know, so that really gives me pause over here. I have that very uneasy feeling about it. Really, that's all I have to say about it. But I just hope to stay well, actually. Amen, Brother John.
It's my understanding that there were something like 600 medical schools in the U.S. before the turn of the 20th century, and they covered all kinds of disciplines from chiropractic to homeopathic to naturopathic to whatever else there was. And they appear to be doing a pretty good job, but then came the Flexner Report, which basically the Rockefellers used to introduce allopathic medicine as the only viable method of medical care, which was very profitable for those who sold drugs. So we went into an allopathic system, and now we've been reaping the results of that allopathic system. But you know, every organism has some kind of immune system that reacts to things that harm it. And society, I think, also has that immune system that reacts to things that harm it. And allopathic medicine, I think, has been doing severe damage for a long time. And so we have this reaction where people are going to acupuncture, Chinese medicine, they're going to chiropractic and various other forms of medicine that actually work and don't cost a lot of money. And one of the examples of this is like Dr. Brzezinski in Houston developed his own drugs, anti-neoplastons, to treat cancer, and he's been very successful at it, and has a cure rate which far exceeds probably any oncologist in the country. But it's kind of interesting that the FDA and the Texas Medical Board have done everything they can to shut him down. You would think that a doctor who is curing people of cancer would get support from the system. So it is obvious that the system is not here to help us. The system is here to take our money, kill us in the process, and make as big a profit as they can in that process. And you know, I know I'm not saying anything new to the people here, but the reason that Chinese medicine and homeopathy and naturopathy and chiropractic and all these other things are doing well is because they work, and people find out that they work, so they want to do something that works rather than just throwing money at the system and keeping the drug companies in business.
Amen.
Well, I think it's very obvious to astute observers that something has gone very wrong with Western medicine. And I don't know how we got here, but I know my great-grandfather was a country doctor, and he was on his deathbed in Depression days, and the children, all 10 of them, were standing around talking about how he had all these receipts of people that owed him money that had piled up during the Depression years, and that as soon as he died, they were going to go collect on all of them. He got up off of his deathbed, walked 3 miles to the office, burned all the receipts in a trash can, and walked the 3 miles home and died. And so I think that makes a statement about values that the doctors used to have, that we no longer have now. And so the other part of our medical system today is somehow we got sold on this better living through chemistry. I don't know, you know, some of us enjoyed the 60s. But really, that masks the real responsibility everyone has to get good exercise, to keep a good diet, because you really are your health, or your lack of health. So many instances, I don't know if you all are familiar with what they call vitamin D or vitamin D3 or something, but they say that if you get enough sunlight, if you get enough vitamin D, that it literally turns on about 20% of your DNA. And my question is, what's it doing turned off? So, I mean, that brings up all kinds of issues that really we need to take more responsibility for our health, and we need to do more for ourselves. I don't know how the Chinese medicine addresses it, but one doctor during the Spanish influenza, which killed, I believe, millions back then, died of the Spanish flu, he kept one soldier alive by simply every half hour he gave him a couple of teaspoons or tablespoons of lemon juice in a glass of water. And every half hour he was dosing him with this fresh lemon juice. And that brought the guy through where many, many thousands were dying around him at the same time. And one other thing, in some medical training I was probably videotaping, and one time something came up, and they said there are 4 major issues in your body, areas where either viral material or bacteria and so forth have a seat. And let me see if I can remember. One is the sinus cavities. The other is the mouth, the throat. Another one is the intestines, your whole intestinal system. And then I think the 4th is your lungs. Now, there are actually things you can do for all 4 of those. I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but at some point when I was sick sometime or other, I'm trying to remember exactly why or who got me into it, but I was actually using a little nasal inhaler with not only colloidal silver, but it's colloidal silver with some kind of essential oil that had quite a kind of a pungent, like it was stronger than peppermint, I remember. And what that did is that kind of activated and opened up the sinuses and let the colloidal silver do the work to reduce the level of what they call total toxic burden. And I think total toxic burden plays a role in any kind of illness that you're dealing with. So you deal with that. There are things you can gargle, salt water you can gargle. Much of the bacteria we deal with is what we have in our mouths. And that flows down, and that affects the whole digestive system, the stomach and below the stomach. And then what we breathe. And you can breathe the ozone. You can take a negative ion ozone generator. And you can only reach so much of that before it starts damaging the lungs. I mean, everything in measure. But it actually can help if you have some kind of thing going on in your lungs. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm even having trouble remembering all these things. But by affecting those 4 different areas, someone who maybe might have been on the edge of something marginal, you can get through it. And then the last thing is the purity of the water you drink. We have an issue coming up, I think, this next Wednesday, where we're going to be down at the City Council again, trying to get the City Council to quit paying $1 million plus to put fluoride in our water. And one of the worst forms of fluoride, if they just leave it out, we already have 0.5 parts per million natural fluoride in the Dallas area water. So why the heck do they need to add any
any more of this stuff, which is just an industrial waste. So if you feel motivated, I think there are going to be speakers both in the morning and afternoon down there talking on trying to get the Dallas water cleaned up. But if we don't get it done, it's still your responsibility to see what you can do yourselves. Thanks.
Well, I'm probably going to be repeating things that I've said before, but I think they're important. Basically, the gist of the way I see it is stay as far away from allopathic medicine as you possibly can. They are excellent if you're in an auto accident and have a broken bone or internal injuries, and they can cut you open and, you know, put it all back together. But when it comes to treating the body for diseases and things like that, get away from them. Find something far more natural than that. I would suggest that this the Asian way approach of it that we heard about tonight is far better than what allopathic medicine can do, because the name Rockefeller was mentioned, probably the most addicted to greed and lust for power of humanity, which is true in the oil industry, and look what they did to that, and in this industry. I've mentioned this before. John and I have a friend who used to stay up late looking at videos that would come out on YouTube, and he would record a lot of them. And some of those would not be there in the morning. And one he was recording was an interview of a fellow who had spent his life as an executive in a large pharmaceutical company. And he had retired, and he was stating that every pharmaceutical drug is designed to control your disease, not to cure it. Because if they cured it, they'd be out of business.
That's right.
But they get a lot of money out of constantly selling you drugs over and over. And he made another statement that every pharmaceutical drug has other chemicals in it that if you take it over time, you will develop another disease for which they have another drug and another and another and another. And older people are on how many drugs now? 5, 10, 15 more? That's because you're being poisoned by these people. They invent terms like side effects, which are clearly poisoning symptoms. I hear some ads on television of drugs, and I cannot believe that a thinking human would even come close to considering, ask your doctor if this is right for you, when they're talking about could cause unconsciousness or death. Right there on television. I just don't even comprehend how we can allow that industry to continue like it is continuing. Frankly, the FDA would be better called the Federal Death Administration.
Amen, brother. Give that vote of confidence.
Tell us how you really
I am going to touch base on a few experiences, and as it relates to the topic, if I've got time, I'm going to answer to Albert's bringing our attention back to this consumerism with the prescription medication and the marketing of consumerism with pharmaceutical medicine in the West. I had a friend that just seemed bonkers, was taking this and taking that for all of her side effects, and she was taking a medicine that kept her heart beating. And I said, my God, Karen, you're taking something to keep your heart beating? Yeah, I'm taking that so I can take this medicine here. And I said, well, Karen, why don't you just stop taking this medicine here? Oh no, I need it because I've got to stay on all of these. And I said, Karen, why don't you just not talk to those people anymore? Well, eventually she did. I had seen her, she was a little bit more lucid the last time I saw her, and quite happy, and I do tend to agree. There are medicines for side effects. The issue with this consumerism is that we have a role in it. yes, I'm looking at everybody. We do have a role in it, and sometimes we do have to use our better judgment. I am not going to vilify all Western doctors. I'm very blessed and fortunate to actually have a doctor that doesn't have a computer in his office. He knows something, and I'm very grateful for that. And then I've seen people that will just treat patients on a curve based by Susie and Manteca, won't even let you see a doctor if you're not insured. Baylor's doing that now. But as far as Western medicine goes, I had a really funny experience, an introduction to how it really worked on a ground level when I had called ACA Herbs on Greenville for my friend looking for a remedy. And this lady in her deep accent, she was just comical. She's, "Do you really want to get well?" And yelled at me. "Then you've got to find the cause. You have got to find the cause." And in terms of diagnostics, I had come to believe, and I am just speculating, that there are specializations in Chinese pharmacology that are as much or more diverse than Western medicine. But I can imagine how a Chinese pharmacologist or an Asian pharmacologist or whatever their specialization is would see one of us. One of the stubborn people. I've got a friend that has an itching yeast rash all over her body. Terrible. I said, I'll change the names to protect the innocent. And I said, "Well, Susan, you know, I really think it's all the wine you're drinking." "Oh, no, my doctor said it's my blood pressure medicine. I need to stay out of the sun. Wow, I itch. I feel terrible today." After about 18 months, she lands in the hospital. She bonked out a knee, and she came home. She said, "You know, the whole time I was in the hospital, my knee was getting better. That all cleared up." I said, "You don't say?" She goes, "Yeah, I think it was the wine." Sometimes we do have to look at the cause, and I'm a good American doctor is going to get fed up with that too. We have to do our part and let them do theirs. There is a role to play in this industry. I am all for finding the cause and finding a natural way to live and doing things, living in a nutritional system, taking supplements that help your body's functions to work the way they're supposed to be. A healthy body will heal itself, and a lot of it is based on that. But there are some people that are just going to want to buy into this and do this and not do their part. So sometimes you have to look at these people at this comical thing that, you know, they want to take their pill to keep their heart beating, or, you know, maybe it was the wine. It takes two to tango, folks.
I guess I'm the last one standing. So I want to thank our speaker for doing a great job here tonight. I mentioned this to our speaker before, I'll mention it again here. Several years ago, I tried acupuncture, was smoking, to get rid of smoking. That was 20 years ago, actually, 1996, that's 21 years ago. And it was supposed to be 4 treatments, and I think it was $90 the first visit, $70 the second visit, the next 2 were free. Well, I went the first day, and they put all these needles in you, and it puts endorphins in the brain, and there was no desire for a cigarette, nothing. It took it all away. Might be, as she mentioned, deadening the nerves, where you had no pain. Anyway, the end result was I had no desire for a cigarette. So the next day I went there and I said, I really don't need to be here. "Yes, we understand. They're sticking needles in me." I said, no, you don't understand. Yes, we understand. And so anyway, they went through all this, and they said, "I'm not coming back." I said, "Yes, we understand." I said, "Fine." And I left. I never went back and never had another cigarette. Now, 3 days later, I was in abject misery. I was, you know, the pain, the withdrawal symptoms or whatever it was, not having a cigarette. It was just driving me nuts. But I got into a mind trap. I refused to have a cigarette until at least I finished the treatment. I didn't want to finish the treatment, so I I never finished the treatment, never had another cigarette. So for 6 months I was in misery, and for a year I was in half misery, and for 2 years I was in a quarter misery, and then finally it disappeared. But I never had another, I haven't had a cigarette since 1996, that's why. But that's acupuncture. So I have to say a plus for it in that respect. And of course, I never did go to the other 2 treatments. I don't know if it really would have done something for me or not. It might have relieved the pain or deadened it some more. But today's medicine, as long as you're taught, Dan brought up the fact that is Western medicine, he's kind of leery of it because of how he's seen a system in England that worked better. I'm in favor of a single payer system personally. I think that would be a much better system than what we have now. And it would be cheaper than what we have, and it would address, instead of addressing money, it would address the people's need for health, and it would make healthcare a right. In other words, you have a right to healthcare, just like going to education, school. Today we accept the fact that all our kids get educated, and that we have public schools and it's paid for by the government in that sense. Why not that for healthcare? And that's just crazy. But anyway, I'll give this back to our speaker. You get the last word.
Thank you. I realize, I think health is the most important thing in our life. Having a good health is a foundation to have a productive, happy life. If it is that important, then we need to put our money and our investment to what is important. So I do put a lot of thoughts in my diet, in my exercise, and in having a positive outlook. As we all know, the 3 things that impact health is your diet, your exercise, and your psychological health, right? If you have a lot of stress in your life, that will raise your blood pressure and everything. So I cook every day or every other day from scratch. I go swimming, I do yoga to keep healthy. And there are a lot of things in the world that there are good things and bad things, positive and negative things. We can't change a lot of negative things. So I choose to focus on more positive things so I don't feel dragged down, right? So I choose to be with more positive people. I choose to look at things that will make me feel hopeful than desperate. I feel I cannot control other people, I can control myself. So I work hard to make it a habit of living a healthy lifestyle and choose to focus on positive things and choose on the things that I can make a change. So hopefully that will help you to think how you can make a positive change in your lifestyle. In fact, today I went to see a Chinese American doctor, but he believes in Western medicine. But when he looked at me and looked at my age, he says, that's the first time I went to see him. He says, "Oh, you look much younger than your age." That made me very happy.
I'm just kind of joke. Actually, since you're all here, I thought I'd tell a couple of jokes. You may have heard this one before, but so what? Anyway, so a guy wearing a hospital gown and holding a drip, dragging a drip behind him, walked into the bar and walked up to the barman and he said, "A double whiskey." So the barman gave him the double whiskey, and then the guy said, you know, with what I've got, I really shouldn't be drinking this. And so the barman said, what have you got? He said, 50 cents. The other joke, I think that Donald Trump is really doing a great service to this country after all, because every day, I think humor is a great thing, and so every day you've got something to laugh at.
We nearly got through a whole meeting without.
Well, that's it for tonight. Our speaker, they kick us out of here at 10:30, just so you know, and this formal meeting is over, but our speaker is still here. If you want to talk to her, and see you next week. So, all right.